The night swallowed the small country road as Emily drove, headlights carving a narrow path through the dense forest. Her hands gripped the steering wheel tighter with each passing second. The storm clouds above seemed to pulse with an ominous weight. She couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching, tracking her every movement. Then, as if summoned by her thoughts, a shape darted across the road in front of her, too fast to make out clearly. Her heart slammed in her chest, and the headlights caught a flash of eyes, dark, unblinking, and full of malice. A scream echoed through the woods, but it wasn't human. Emily slammed on the brakes, the tires screeching as the car lurched to a halt. Panic seized her. She had no idea what she'd just seen, but whatever it wasn't natural. It was waiting for her. Emily sat frozen in her car, her hands still clutching the steering wheel, but her mind raced. Her breath came in shallow gasps, heart hammering in her chest as the noise of the storm outside seemed to drown everything else. What had she just seen? It couldn't have been real. Her mind tried to rationalize it, but the fear gnawed at her, pulling her back into the moment. She needed to move, to get out of here, but something held her there. The eyes, those eyes. They had been too vivid, too human-like, too full of malice. Slowly, she reached for the door handle, but her body trembled so much she wasn't sure she could make it. The road ahead was still silent, but that silence felt too unnatural, too waiting. She couldn't shake the sense that the creature was still out there, just beyond the reach of her headlights. She had to leave before it came back for her. Emily finally mustered the courage to open the door. The moment she stepped out into the wet, cold air, the storm seemed to heighten, the wind howling louder, and the rain coming down in sheets. She glanced over her shoulder, still expecting to see something lurking in the dark. Her breath came out in white puffs, but she couldn't decide which direction to go. The road was empty, the forest silent, and yet the feeling of being watched had only intensified. She took a cautious step forward, but the sound of a twig snapping in the distance made her freeze. A shiver ran down her spine. It wasn't the wind. The woods were too quiet now. Emily held her breath, eyes darting from tree to tree, waiting for the next movement. She knew she wasn't alone, and it was only a matter of time before whatever was watching her made its move. Her heart pounded in her chest, each beat echoing louder in her ears as she continued to scan the shadows. The air felt charged with electricity, as if the storm itself was holding its breath. She took another step forward, her boots sinking slightly into the soft mud. The forest seemed to close in around her, the trees pressing in from all sides. Then, a low guttural sound pierced the air. Unnatural, a growl that vibrated through her bones. Emily's blood ran cold. She whirled around, her eyes darting, but there was nothing, no shape, no creature, just the relentless rain. And yet, the growl lingered, reverberating through the air. She stumbled back toward the car, her mind racing, but she knew she couldn't stay here. Something out there was waiting for her, and she had no idea what it wanted. All she knew was that she couldn't outrun it, not if it was hunting her. Emily scrambled into the car, slamming the door shut behind her. Her hands shook violently as she tried to start the engine, but it stalled. Her breath came fast and shallow, panic overwhelming her. She glanced out of the window, but the road was still empty. For a moment, everything was silent, except for the steady patter of rain. But then, the growl returned. This time, closer. Emily's eyes shot to the rearview mirror, but all she could see was the mist rising from the forest. The creature was near. She could feel it, as though it was breathing down her neck. The engine sputtered again, and her fingers fumbled on the key. She had to get out of there, but what if it was already too late? The day after the strange encounter, Emily couldn't shake the feeling that something was still watching her. She tried to go back to normal, but the sight of the dark road haunted her thoughts. Her phone buzzed, pulling her out of her spiraling thoughts. A message from her friend Sarah asked if she was okay. Emily glanced at the screen before replying, her fingers trembling. "Just needed a break," she typed. She couldn't bring herself to tell Sarah the truth. Not yet, anyway. She had barely slept. Every creak of her house, every whisper of wind, made her feel like the creature was close, waiting. Later that day, Emily called her mother, asking if she could come over. The relief in her voice was palpable when her mother agreed, and Emily immediately grabbed her jacket. As she prepared to leave, she looked back one last time at the lonely road she had driven the night before. A chill ran down her spine. By the time Emily arrived at her mother's house, it was late afternoon. The house was warm, the smell of her mother's cooking wafting from the kitchen. It should have been comforting, but the unease still lingered. Her mother, Linda, greeted her with a tight hug, but Emily could sense the concern in her eyes. "You okay, sweetie?" Linda asked gently, leading her to the couch. Emily nodded, though she didn't feel okay. After a quiet dinner, they sat together, talking about trivial things. Emily didn't want to bring up what had happened, not yet. But when Linda asked about the strange noises in the night, Emily's stomach twisted. "It's nothing, Mom," Emily replied, forcing a smile. But deep down, she knew that someone, was out there. Her mother, however, seemed completely at ease, unaware of the looming threat. The night fell, and with it came an oppressive stillness. Emily lay in the guest room, staring at the ceiling, too restless to sleep. The wind outside whistled through the trees, but there was something unsettling about the silence that followed. She pulled the blankets tighter around her, wishing for a sense of safety that wasn't there. Then, a knock on the door startled her, making her heart leap in her chest. It was her mother, standing in the doorway with a concerned look. "You sure you're all right?" Linda asked softly. Emily hesitated but nodded. "I'm fine, Mom, just tired," she replied, though her voice betrayed her. Linda seemed unconvinced but didn't push further. As her mother left, Emily's gaze wandered to the window, her pulse quickening when she thought she saw a figure in the distance, standing at the edge of the trees. The figure disappeared just as quickly as it appeared, but Emily was left trembling in the dark, the unsettling feeling growing stronger. The following day, Emily returned home, her mind still weighed down by the previous night. She tried to shake it off, telling herself it was just her imagination. But then, something happened that she couldn't explain. As she walked to her front door, she noticed something strange, footprints in the mud, leading up to her porch. The prints were large, unnatural, almost too perfect in their symmetry. Emily felt her stomach churn. Her first instinct was to call someone, but who would believe her? She bent down, inspecting the tracks, when the wind picked up again, and a chill ran through her body. The prints led to the door and stopped there, but the air around her felt heavier. Someone, had been here, and Emily was sure it wasn't human. As Emily retreated inside, her hands still shaking, she couldn't dismiss the feeling that whatever had left those tracks was still out there. The walls of her house seemed to close in on her, the silence becoming unbearable. She paced the living room, unable to focus on anything. Every creak of the house made her jump, and each passing minute felt like a countdown. The phone buzzed again, breaking her thoughts. It was a message from Sarah. "You sure you're all right? Heard about some strange reports from the woods." Emily froze. Her mind raced. She hadn't told Sarah about the creature, but now her friend's message felt like a warning. "I'm fine," she typed, but she couldn't shake the sense of dread gnawing at her. The creature was real. It was out there, and it was getting closer. Days had passed since the footprints appeared, but Emily couldn't let it go. Every night she lay awake, staring at the ceiling, waiting for a sign that the creature was still out there. The more she thought about it, the more it seemed impossible to ignore. She'd driven the road once again, hoping to find something, anything, that would give her peace of mind. But all she found were the same trees, the same empty stretch of road. No signs of the creature. Nothing. Emily tried to dismiss it, but something gnawed at her. The fear, the unease. It was as though the creature was toying with her. That night, as she prepared for bed, her phone buzzed again. This time it was a message from Sarah. "You still good? Heard more weird stuff in the woods. Locals are getting freaked out." Emily stared at the message, feeling a chill creep down her spine. She had to know what was going on. The pieces didn't add up, and she was too afraid to ignore it any longer. The next morning, Emily drove to the local diner, hoping to find some answers. As she walked in, the warm smell of coffee filled the air, but the chatter of the usual crowd seemed muted, distant. The atmosphere was tense, the weight of unspoken words hanging over the tables. She spotted Sarah sitting in the corner booth and made her way over. "You said it's getting worse?" Emily asked, sliding into the seat across from her. Sarah nodded, her expression grim. "The locals are on edge," she said in a low voice. "People are talking about more sightings, things moving in the trees, noises at night. They're all saying the same thing. Something's out there and it's getting closer." Emily listened, her heart pounding in her chest. She had suspected as much, but hearing it from Sarah only made it more real. "Have you told anyone else?" Emily asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Sarah shook her head. "No one believes it. They think it's just stories, legends, but I'm not so sure anymore." Later that day, Emily decided to take a walk through the woods near her house. She needed answers, and the forest felt like the only place where she could find them. The moment she stepped onto the trail, the temperature dropped, and a strange silence settled over the trees. Her breath came out in visible puffs, and the wind rustled the leaves in an almost unnatural way. Emily's heart raced as she moved deeper into the forest, the air growing thicker with each step. She tried to focus on the sounds of nature, but all she could hear was the thudding of her own pulse. Then she saw it, a large twisted tree with something dark hanging from it. As she drew closer, she realized it was a tattered piece of fabric caught on a branch. It was torn and stained, but there was something eerily familiar about it. Her stomach turned as she reached for it, and her mind raced with questions. Who else had been here? And why did the fabric feel like it belonged to someone she knew? Emily returned home that evening, the piece of fabric clutched in her hand. It had taken all her willpower not to run back to her car when she found it, but now, as she sat in her living room, the fabric seemed to pulse with a sinister energy. She spread it out on the coffee table, examining it closely. There were dark stains on it, and as she ran her fingers over the rough material, she could almost feel the presence of whoever had worn it. Her mind raced with possibilities, but one thing was clear. This wasn't just some random scrap of cloth. The creature was real, and it was close. She thought about Sarah's words, about the sightings and whispers. There was no more denying it. Whatever it was that had been stalking her, it was getting bolder. Emily's fear was now mixed with a sense of determination. She had to figure out what this was, before it was too late. That night, Emily couldn't sleep. The image of the torn fabric haunted her, and the sounds of the night outside felt louder than ever. She paced her living room, unable to sit still. Every creak of the house made her jump. Then, there was a knock at the door. It was sharp and sudden, shattering the stillness of the night. Emily froze, her heart pounding in her chest. She hadn't been expecting anyone. Slowly, she made her way to the door, her hand trembling as she reached for the handle. When she opened it, there was no one there, just the cold wind and a darkened porch. Her stomach dropped as she looked around, but then she saw it. A fresh set of muddy footprints leading up to her door. The same size, the same shape as the ones from the road. Whoever, or whatever, had been following her was here now. Emily sat on her porch, staring at the muddy footprints that now seemed to encircle her house. Her heart pounded in her chest as her mind raced. She had to get out. She couldn't stay here. The creature was getting closer, and with every passing moment, she felt it drawing near, closing in on her. It wasn't just following her. It was hunting her. Thought of the creature made her blood run cold. But it was the realization that it had been watching her for so long, waiting, that truly terrified her. She had to leave. There was no time to waste. But then a thought stopped her dead in her tracks. If it was following her now, if it was here, would she even make it out alive? Emily rose shakily, her hands trembling. As she reached for her keys, she heard a sound from the woods. It was a low growl, primal and feral. She froze, every muscle in her body tense. It was real. The creature was here. Emily couldn't breathe. The growl echoed through the woods again, louder this time, closer. It was a warning. Whatever was out there was close, and it was no longer hiding in the shadows. She glanced behind her, her eyes scanning the house, searching for any sign of movement, but the dark windows offered no answers. The air around her was thick, almost suffocating, and her pulse raced as she started to back away slowly, her feet unsure of where to go. She knew that she couldn't stay here anymore. Her mind screamed for her to run, but her body refused to move. Every instinct told her to flee, but her legs wouldn't cooperate. The growl came again, now unmistakably close. Emily's eyes darted toward the woods, where the trees seemed to bend under the weight of something unseen. There was no escaping it now. The creature had arrived. Emily bolted from the porch, her heart hammering in her chest. She didn't know where she was going, but she knew she couldn't stay. The growl had been followed by a series of crackling noises, as if something large was moving through the trees. Her feet pounded against the dirt, her breath coming in short, quick gasps. She stumbled toward the car, but as she reached for the door handle, the world around her went dark. The headlights of her car flickered, and the air grew still, too still. Emily's eyes darted to the woods, where she could see shadows moving, long, predatory shapes shifting in the darkness. She could feel its eyes on her, the creature watching, waiting. The growl rumbled again, much closer now. Emily turned back to the car, her hands shaking as she fumbled with the keys. She had to leave. She had to escape before it reached her. As she reached the car, Emily's fingers fumbled for the key, her pulse racing as she desperately tried to start the engine. The growl came again, this time with a low, rumbling roar that shook the ground beneath her feet. The car sputtered to life, but the headlights illuminated only darkness. Panic surged in her chest. She slammed the car into reverse and tore out of the driveway, heart in her throat. She didn't look back, not once. She didn't dare. The road was empty, silent, but every instinct told her the creature was still out there, somewhere in the dark. She couldn't stop. The engine roared in protest as Emily pushed the car faster, her hands gripping the wheel so tight her knuckles turned white. Behind her, the growl faded, but the air remained thick, heavy, as though the forest itself were closing in on her, unwilling to let her escape. Emily didn't stop driving until she reached the outskirts of town. Her heart was still racing, her hands trembling on the wheel. She pulled into the first gas station she saw, the bright lights flickering against the pitch-black sky. She sat there for a long time, staring at the empty road ahead, trying to calm her breath. But even in the safety of the lights, she couldn't shake the feeling that the creature was still out there, waiting for her to make the next move. Her phone buzzed again. It was Sarah. "Where are you? You okay?" Emily read the message, her fingers trembling as she typed back. "I don't know. Something's hunting me, Sarah. It's real. And it's getting closer." As she hit send, Emily's gaze shifted to the rearview mirror. For a brief moment, she thought she saw a pair of glowing eyes reflecting in the darkness. But when she looked again, there was nothing there. She wasn't alone. Emily couldn't shake the feeling that the creature was still following her, that it was never far behind. The night had stretched into early morning, and the landscape outside her car window was a blur of dark trees and distant lights. Her hands were trembling, her mind racing. Every sound outside the car, every creak and crack of the road beneath her tires, made her jump. She hadn't stopped since she left the gas station, not once. The exhaustion weighed on her, but she couldn't afford to rest. The creature was close. She could feel it, and she could hear it sometimes in the distance. Every time she thought she was alone, the growl would return, sending a chill down her spine. It was almost like the thing was toying with her, dragging out the terror. She had to keep moving. But where would she go? She thought about Sarah, about her mother. But who could help her now? The fear gripped her throat, and all she wanted was to get as far from the forest as possible. But every time she pushed the pedal harder, the darkness seemed to stretch even further, swallowing the road. The car finally slowed as Emily reached a crossroads. The sign ahead was weathered, barely legible in the dark. She had no idea which road to take. She hadn't planned on driving through this part of town, but she didn't have many options left. Her phone buzzed again. This time, it was a call from her mother. Emily hesitated, not wanting to worry her more, but she couldn't avoid it any longer. "Mom," she whispered into the phone. Her mother's voice came through faintly. "Emily, where are you? I've been trying to reach you for hours. Are you okay?" Emily felt the tears welling up in her eyes, but she quickly blinked them away. I'm fine, Mom. I'm just trying to get away from something." The silence on the other end was deafening. "What do you mean? You're scaring me." Emily's voice faltered as she fought to keep calm. "There's something out there, something in the woods. It's following me. I'm not safe. Please don't tell anyone." Her mother's voice shook with concern. "I'm coming to find you. Stay where you are." But Emily knew that wasn't possible. She couldn't wait. She couldn't let the creature get any closer. Emily drove further down the winding road, the landscape growing even more desolate. She couldn't remember how long she had been driving, or how many turns she had made. The headlights flickered again, casting strange shadows across the road. The car started to sputter, and for a moment Emily's heart dropped into her stomach. The engine stuttered, but she pushed the pedal down, praying it would keep running. A mile down the road she saw it, a sign for a small, abandoned motel. She pulled in, her hands shaking as she turned off the engine. Emily got out of the car, her feet unsteady as she walked toward the entrance. The building was old, the neon lights flickering dimly in the distance. She could feel the weight of the night pressing on her, but the motel offered the closest thing to safety. She had no choice but to stay. She stepped inside, her footsteps echoing in the quiet lobby. The smell of old wood and dust filled the air, but Emily didn't care. She needed to rest, if only for a few hours. Inside, the lobby was dimly lit, the air thick with dust and the faint smell of mildew. Emily walked to the counter, where a tired-looking clerk barely glanced up as she approached. "One room, please," Emily said, her voice hoarse. The clerk nodded silently and handed her a key without a word. She took it, her fingers brushing the cold metal, and turned to make her way to the stairs. She barely noticed the creaking floorboards beneath her feet as she ascended. She was too tired to think, too overwhelmed to care. The room she was given was small, the bed unmade, but it was enough. She closed the door behind her, locked it, and collapsed onto the bed, still fully clothed. The sheets were cold, but she didn't care. She stared at the ceiling, trying to breathe, trying to calm her racing heart. But the growl of the creature, distant and deep, echoed in her mind. It wasn't over. It was still out there. Emily woke with a start. The room was dark, the faint glow of dawn just beginning to creep through the blinds. She sat up quickly, her heart racing. For a moment, she thought she heard something. Footsteps, slow and deliberate. She glanced at the door, but it was still locked. Her breath was shallow, and the air felt thick with tension. Her phone buzzed on the nightstand, and Emily grabbed it, desperate for any kind of contact, anything that would pull her out of the spiraling fear. It was a message from Sarah. "We found it, Emily. The thing in the woods, it's not a legend, it's real. We need to leave now." Emily's heart stopped. The creature was coming, and this time, it wouldn't stop until it had her. Emily's heart was racing as she sat in the cold, dimly lit motel room. The message from Sarah had sent a jolt of terror through her. The thing in the woods wasn't just a myth. It was real, and it was closing in. She tried to steady her breath, but every sound outside seemed amplified, like it was hunting her. Her hands shook as she grabbed her phone again, fingers hovering over the screen, unsure of what to do. The silence of the motel was deafening, broken only by the occasional creak of the building. Emily couldn't stay here any longer. She had no idea where to go next, but staying in this place, with its decaying walls and fading light, felt like an invitation for the creature to find her. She grabbed her jacket and headed for the door, but before she could reach the handle, a low growl echoed in the distance. Her body froze, instinct telling her to run. But where? Emily stepped outside, her breath coming in short gasps. The cold night air hit her face like a slap, but it did little to calm her nerves. She quickly made her way to the car, her footsteps echoing in the silence. As she approached, she felt a sudden sense of dread, as if the shadows around her were closing in. The moonlight barely pierced the thick canopy of trees, and every movement in the dark seemed like it could be the creature, stalking her every step. She slid into the car, locking the doors behind her. Her heart pounded in her chest, and her hands trembled as she fumbled for the keys. The engine sputtered to life, but the moment it did, she heard the unmistakable sound of heavy footsteps outside, too slow, too deliberate. She wasn't alone. Emily couldn't shake the feeling that the creature was watching her. The footsteps outside had stopped, but the air felt thick, oppressive. She pressed the accelerator, her eyes glued to the rearview mirror, expecting to see the creature looming behind her. The road stretched ahead, an endless ribbon of darkness, but she didn't dare look away. Every few moments she would glance over her shoulder, but there was nothing. She wasn't sure how long she had been driving, but the forest around her seemed to grow darker, the trees more suffocating. Then, without warning, the headlights of another car appeared ahead of her. Emily's heart skipped a beat. She swerved to the side of the road, her pulse racing. The car passed by without slowing, its headlights blinding her for a moment. But, as it passed, she saw something that made her blood run cold. A dark figure standing in the middle of the road, watching her. The figure in the road didn't move. Emily's heart slammed against her chest as she approached, her foot hovering over the brake. She couldn't make out any details in the darkness, but she could feel the weight of its presence. It was watching her, waiting for her to make the first move. She slammed on the brakes, the car screeching to a halt just in time. The figure remained still, standing in the middle of the road, its eyes glowing faintly in the dark. Emily's breath caught in her throat as she stared, frozen in place. Was it the creature? Had it found her? She couldn't move, couldn't breathe. Her mind screamed at her to drive, to get out of there, but her body refused to obey. The figure in the road tilted its head, its eyes narrowing as it studied her. And then, as if sensing her fear, it slowly stepped aside, disappearing into the woods. Emily didn't hesitate once the figure stepped aside. Her foot slammed on the accelerator, and the car lurched forward, speeding down the road. She didn't look back. She couldn't. But as she drove, the feeling of being watched didn't leave her. The road ahead seemed to stretch on forever, the trees closing in tighter, the night growing colder. The further she drove, the more she realized that the creature wasn't just following her, it was guiding her, drawing her into something darker, something she wasn't ready to face. Her mind raced as she thought of Sarah, of her mother, of the people she loved. Could she keep running forever? Or was this all part of the creature's twisted game? As the miles passed, the darkness around her seemed to shift, and she wondered if she was already too far gone, too far into the forest to escape. The road stretched endlessly before Emily, the darkness closing in around her like a thick fog. She had no idea where she was or how much further she could drive before the creature caught up to her. The fear gnawed at her insides, a constant gnawing presence that made every shadow seem darker and every rustle of leaves sound like the creature's heavy steps. Her mind raced, but all she could think about was the one question that had been haunting her for days. Why her? What had she done to deserve this? It wasn't just a cryptid. It was something intelligent, something malevolent, and it was tied to her in ways she couldn't yet understand. Suddenly, the headlights flickered, casting long shadows across the road. Emily's heart skipped a beat. She slammed the brakes, the tires screeching as she fought to regain control of the car. Ahead, in the distance, the figure appeared again. This time, it was closer, so close she could make out its silhouette, standing tall and still, watching her. The creature's eyes glowed in the dark, its presence an overwhelming force that seemed to fill every inch of space around her. Emily's pulse thundered in her ears, and for a moment she thought she saw something that wasn't human, in its eyes. It wasn't just watching her, it was staring at her, knowing her, waiting for her to make the next move. Her hand trembled as she reached for the gear shift, but before she could react, the figure moved. Slowly, methodically, it stepped closer, its form becoming clearer with each passing second. It was tall, impossibly so, and its limbs were elongated and strange, far too long for any creature she had ever seen. Emily slammed her foot on the gas, the car lurching forward as she sped toward the figure, but it didn't move. It stood its ground, its eyes locked onto hers. The growl rumbled again, deep and resonating, shaking the very air around her. Emily's car screeched to a halt just inches from the figure. Her breath came in ragged gasps, the sound of her heartbeat deafening in her ears. The creature didn't move, didn't flinch, as the car stopped right in front of it. The air between them felt charged, heavy, as if the universe itself was holding its breath. Emily could feel the creature's presence pressing in on her, suffocating her. She didn't know what to do. Should she drive? Should she get out? But something told her that no matter what she did, it wouldn't change anything. The creature wasn't here by accident. It had come for her. The thought hit her like a wave, and for the first time, she understood. She wasn't meant to survive this. Her mind reeled as she tried to process what was happening, but the creature's eyes were unblinking, unwavering, and then, in the blink of an eye, it took a step forward. With a sudden, unearthly screech, the creature lunged toward the car. Emily slammed the car into reverse, her heart racing as the car jolted backward, the tires screeching against the asphalt. The world blurred around her as she sped down the road, desperate to get away. The creature didn't chase. It didn't need to. Its presence, its eyes, seemed to haunt the very air around her. No matter how fast she drove, she could feel it, watching, waiting, always just behind her. The trees around her seemed to shift, their shadows stretching unnaturally long, as though the forest itself was moving with the creature. Emily's pulse hammered in her chest as she tried to breathe, but the fear was choking her. No matter how far she ran, she knew it was already too late. The creature wasn't just hunting her. It was waiting for the right moment to strike. Emily's car finally reached the edge of the forest, the trees thinning out as the road stretched toward the open fields. But as she looked in the rearview mirror, she saw it, the creature, standing at the edge of the woods, its eyes still fixed on her. For a brief moment, their gazes locked. The creature's presence was everywhere, suffocating, as though the very night had become part of it. Emily's breath caught in her throat as she realized the truth. It wasn't over. The creature had never intended to kill her. It had been following her, waiting for her to understand. The woods weren't its home. Emily was. The car lurched forward, and as she sped into the open fields, the sound of a final chilling growl echoed in the distance. Emily didn't look back. She couldn't. The thing in the woods had already won.